My rich boss can give me everything. A broken man playing the victim. My wife mocked me after she and her lover conspired to make me lose my job and my kids. But fate took a sharp turn when an unknown person helped me expose every single crime they thought they'd buried forever. The day I forced my last box into a cheap storage unit, my phone buzzed with Clara's message. You will die poor and alone. I was still staring at those cruel words when I noticed a hard, black briefcase on the floor. It had a tag with my full name clearly written on it. Inside, I found 30 thick stacks of euros and a note. It read, "This is only travel money. The real fortune is at these coordinates." That was the exact moment I stopped drowning and started fighting back. My name is Martin. I'm 37, and until recently, I proudly introduced myself as a route planner at a logistics company. That was a fancy way of saying I made Excel spreadsheets, created maps, and caught all the yelling when the trucks were late. I'm the father of Nico, who is 9, and 6-year-old Sophia. If anyone ever asked about me, I'd say I work a lot, but I always make it to school events and I always make pancakes on Sundays. It wasn't a glamorous life, but it felt like mine. Clara, my wife, had always chased the glamour. She started as a hairdresser, moved to makeup assistant, and eventually became an Instagram content creator. She was doing well, not exactly getting rich, but companies sent her creams, coffees, and sometimes clothes. I found it amusing how packages arrived daily at our house. "It's for a collaboration," she would say, and I'd just smile and nod. The first Sunday in June, we went to the company's annual party. I really didn't want to go, but the kids had been promised bouncy castles and hamburgers. Clara was insistent on wearing a red dress. I'm clumsy with clothes, so I just wore the shirt that doesn't wrinkle much. "We'll be quick, okay?" I told Clara. "I'm only going for Sophie and Nico." "Relax, Martin," she replied, checking her reflection in the elevator mirror. "You always get so tense about these things." The party, as usual, was held in the largest warehouse, the one draped with a white tarp and featuring the freshly repainted company logo. The bosses would serve kava, blast 80s music, and give a long speech about the second family. I already knew all the tired jokes of the general manager, Javier, a young guy who seemed to float through life without a single bad day. This time, when he walked in, people nearly applauded. Javier was wearing a crisp white shirt with rolled-up sleeves and a watch that could easily buy my car 3 times over. "Martin," he yelled from across the room. Come, I'll introduce you to some people." I joined him with a forced, "Sure, why not?" smile. I wanted to point out my children, who were already making a beeline for the bouncy castle, but Javier was distracted, already looking elsewhere. "And this must be your wife?" he said when Clara approached. "A pleasure, Javier." "Clara," she replied, shaking his hand. She gave him that same gorgeous smile that had hooked me back when I was 23. He held her gaze for a second too long. I definitely noticed. "I'm not paranoid, but you know how men look at your wife. You clearly have a knack for makeup," Javier said. "Do you ever do collaborations?" "Yes," Clara said. "Nothing serious yet." "How odd that no major agency has contacted you. You have a light." That word, light, stuck with me. I was standing 3 feet away, and for a moment, I felt completely invisible. I forced myself to change the subject, moving to talk about truck routes, logistics, and how bad App 6 was on Mondays. Javier smiled politely and immediately looked back at Clara. "We have a private event coming up in 2 weeks," he told her. "I'll leave you my contact just in case you'd like to come and do makeup for some of the guests. It pays well." Clara took Javier's phone. "It's fine," I told myself. "It's just networking." The party dragged on. Nico fell from the castle. Sophie stained her nice white dress with ketchup. I ran for napkins. Clara vanished for a while. "The agency called me," she claimed when she returned. She thought I was too distracted to care. I desperately wanted to believe her, but that familiar knot had already tightened in my stomach. The kind you get when you smell something burning and can't tell if it's from the oven or from your life. On the drive home, I tried to make conversation. "Javier seems nice." "He's the boss," she said, shrugging it off. "Bosses are nice when they're trying to sell themselves." "Are you going to this event if they pay you?" "Well, yes. I don't know. Just don't invent a whole drama where there isn't one." She cut me off sharply. "Let's not start." I really didn't want to start anything. I just wanted to crash on the sofa with the kids and watch cartoons. But that afternoon, while Clara was uploading a story with a butterfly filter, I felt the first small tug on the thread. Pull it, and the entire sweater unravels. Leave it, and it bothers you all afternoon. Don't pull it, Martin, I told myself. And I didn't. Not that day anyway. To truly understand, I need to go back a little further. We weren't wealthy. We had a mortgage, a small car payment, and school lunches to cover. My salary and any overtime extras were just enough to keep up with the bills, though we were rarely on time. Last year, we wiped out our entire savings due to a leak that ruined our kitchen. That meant 3 months of construction, 3 months of eating out, and 3 months of fighting over dust everywhere and busted budgets. I can't live a half-life, Martin, Clara told me one evening. I don't want to spend the rest of my life waiting for the money to be enough. I don't like it either, I replied. But I am working. I work constantly. It's not just about work, it's about ambition. I had no response to that. 2 weeks later, Clara started going out more often. Meetings with an agency, photo shoots with a brand, a brunch for female entrepreneurs. I stayed with the children, and it wasn't a huge drama. I genuinely enjoy being with them. Nico loves maps, and Sophie loves animals. I was happy that they could see their father knew a little something about the world. But then I started noticing the gifts, perfumes, new flowers, always from the brand, she'd explain, and I would nod. I didn't want to be that controlling husband. I refused to be the one who checked her phone. I never did. I kept repeating to myself, trust her. Meanwhile, at work, Javier began asking me for increasingly strange favors. Change that route. Hit the Torjon warehouse first. Don't log this pallet. It goes separately. Bring me this flash drive, and make sure it doesn't touch the server. I am a stickler for doing things by the book, and this made me deeply uncomfortable. But he was my boss, and he spoke to me with that smug tone that implied, you and I know how the world really works. I would agree and then leave his office completely riddled with anxiety. Rafa, my coworker, noticed. Everything all right, Martin? He asked me one afternoon. You seem off. I don't know. They're asking me for weird stuff. If it's weird, document it. Email everything to yourself. You never know. I didn't take his advice. Instead, I wrote everything down in an old notebook with a black cover. The worst moment was when Javier called me into his office and offered me a bonus for a simple favor. He wanted me to sign paperwork for some materials as received, materials that hadn't actually arrived yet. They arrive tomorrow. It's no problem, but we need it signed for accounting today. I don't like it, I told him. I don't like signing for something that isn't here. You don't like the bonus? He countered with a grin. Everyone likes a good bonus. Think about your kids, Christmas, toys, all that. I stood there in silence. I signed the form. I left in disgust, but with an extra 500 euros. I rationalized it as an advance. I convinced myself the materials would show up. They did, but the feeling of disgust lingered. Clara, in the meantime, went to Javier's event. She did makeup for some guests. She came home late and said everything went perfectly. She claimed work flows smoothly when people just trust you. I asked point blank, just to squash the suspicion, was Javier there? Yes, of course. It was his event. Did he say anything to you about me having a light? Silence. I need to take a shower. I lectured myself, don't be childish. Don't cause a scene. But I started monitoring her schedule. I began staying later at the office just so I wouldn't have to watch her back in bed, staring at her phone. It's ugly, but it's the truth. We slept next to each other, but an invisible wall had been built between us. I kept telling myself, she'll get over it. One Thursday, Javier spoke to me again. On Monday, I need you to make a personal delivery to a villa in La Moria. Don't put anything in the system. I'll send you the details on WhatsApp. On WhatsApp? I asked, forcing myself to swallow. You know I shouldn't. Do you trust me or not? It wasn't a question, it was a thinly veiled order. I went. I left a small box. No one opened the door, so I was told, leave it with the doorman, with security. Done. The very next day, Human Resources called me. We need to talk, Martin. I sat across from a woman I didn't recognize. She had a file containing printed route photos, signatures, and emails. This is serious, she informed me. We've detected irregularities in your management. Signatures for unreceived material, unauthorized detours, deliveries outside of protocol. The world began to buzz in my ears. I felt a hot flush on the back of my neck. Excuse me. I don't do anything that Javier. Don't drag the director into this. She cut me off. This is your signature. This is your responsibility. Javier asked me to. I have the WhatsApp messages. We don't have access to your chats. What we have is this. And this compels us to terminate your contract immediately. I signed a paper. I wasn't even sure what I was signing. I left with my box, that pathetic cardboard box containing a cactus, 2 coffee mugs, and the black-covered notebook. I stopped at the door. Rafa rushed over. What happened? They fired me. What? He simply wrapped me in a hug. I called Clara in the car, but she didn't answer. I texted her. I just got fired. Nothing. Silence. I sat in the driver's seat for an hour, staring blankly at the steering wheel. When she finally arrived home that afternoon, Clara had her classic, don't involve me in your drama expression. What did you do, Martin? Nothing. I did exactly what Javier asked. They framed me. Oh, Martin. Always the victim, always searching for someone else to blame, she replied, throwing her bag onto the sofa. The only person who framed you is yourself. I'm utterly exhausted by your mediocrity. Mediocrity? You were sleeping with him at the company party. You piece of trash. The words exploded out of me like shattered glass. Keep your voice down. The children are here, she snapped, though her face was completely white. It was just one time. It was an agency meeting that got out of hand. He was trying to help me. He was going to get me out of this pit you put me in. Don't you dare bring Javier into this. He doesn't do anything dirty. How do you know that? Because he's smart, she said, as if she were somehow entitled to that knowledge. He's not going to risk his entire company over something silly. What exactly is your relationship with Javier? I asked flat out. Tell me. You owe me that much. I don't owe you a single thing, she said. It was at that moment my hand actually started to tremble. I'm tired of your victim routine, your mediocrity, your stupid excuses. I asked you to support me for 5 minutes, I whispered back. I lost my job. I don't want to lose my whole life. We didn't sleep a wink that night. A week later, Clara moved out. I'm going to my mother's with the kids until you manage to get over yourself, she announced. It definitely wasn't her mother's. I knew from the scent of a perfume no mother would wear. I knew because Nico asked me, are we going to see Javier's house? I nearly choked. Who told you that, Nico? Mom said Javier has a pool. I called Clara, and we fought like savage animals. You left to be with him. Don't you dare, she shrieked. Don't you dare play the victim. The lawyers started calling. The papers started piling up. The bills started pouring in. The mortgage isn't going to pay itself without a job. I quickly fell behind. The bank called. Get up to date, or we will begin proceedings. I was desperately looking for a job. We'll call you when we have an opening. Meanwhile, I kept seeing pictures of Clara in fancy restaurants, eating dishes I couldn't pronounce. Are you planning on moving in with him? I asked her during one mediation session. I'm living there now, she said dryly. And the children are happy. Javier has plenty of space. There was no way for me to compete with a house that had a pool and a father who had just lost his job for irregularities. No, there was no full trial. There were only agreements, visitation schedules, and a demand for financial support. With what money? I looked at my remaining balance and felt sick to my stomach. The day the eviction notice arrived, I just sat down on the floor. I called my sister, Paula. Come home, she immediately said. You can stay with me. I don't want to be a burden. You are not a burden to anyone. You're the one being run over. I didn't go. I was too ashamed. I sold the car for whatever they offered me. What I got wasn't enough to cover the late payments. I covered part of it, but the bank proceeded with the eviction anyway. It took a long time for me to believe it was really happening. I saw myself signing the papers with a grim man who wouldn't even meet my eye. I saw myself loading my belongings into garbage bags because I was out of cardboard boxes. I remember Nico hugging me and whispering, Daddy, please don't cry. I bit my lip and just nodded my head. I didn't want that to be their final memory of me. Clara texted me the same day I left the apartment. I didn't call her. I didn't want any shouting. The message was short. Your obligation is to pay child support. Let's see if you can manage to fulfill something for once. I replied, I'm looking for a job. Give me 1 week. She sent back a 1-minute and 48-second voice message. I didn't listen to the whole thing. All I caught was excuses, and you've always been small. Javier actually delivers. Then came the message that felt permanently etched onto my heart, like a tattoo. You will die poor and alone. I read it 3 times. I thought, you can't say that to the father of your children. But she did. That day, I took my remaining belongings to a cheap storage unit I found in an industrial park next to the M40, a place of sheet metal corridors and depressing gray doors. I paid for 1 month in advance with everything I had left. Don Luis, the guy at the reception, looked at me with that knowing look. All kinds of people end up here. Don't worry, he told me gently. For many, this is just temporary. I managed a grateful smile. We loaded my 4 boxes onto a cart. My entire world reduced to 4 boxes. 1 with clothes, 1 with papers, 1 with toys I couldn't bear to leave, and 1 with a coffee maker and a couple of plates. When I unlocked the door to the assigned unit, I immediately saw something that wasn't mine. It was a hard, black briefcase with a white label bearing my name. Martin, that's not mine, I told Don Luis. Well, it shouldn't be here. He frowned, looking closely. Let's see. How long has this been here? He asked, as if the briefcase could answer him. I'm sorry, Luis. I just can't deal with any more mysteries today. If it has your name, it has to be for you. He was right. The label had my first and both my last names. Not a single error. The lock combination was 000. I don't like opening other people's things. If it's addressed to you, open it, Luis insisted. What if it's some sort of sick joke? If it explodes, at least we'll make the news. He tried a weak joke. I was in no mood for laughter. I tried 000. Nothing. I tried 1-2-3-4. Nothing. I tried my date of birth. Nothing. Luis brought me a small tool. Don't worry, I won't ask any questions, he said. No one asks questions around here. I inserted the tip and forced the lock. My hand was shaking violently. I felt a surge of both pleasure and guilt when the lock finally clicked open. Inside were stacks of euro bills, bound tightly with rubber bands. The distinct smell of paper and fresh ink hit me with an intense dose of reality. I had never seen so much cash in my life. On top of the stacks was an envelope. I took a slow, deep breath and opened it. Inside, a printed sheet contained a single sentence in capital letters. This is only money for the trip. The real fortune awaits you at a designated place. Below that, consult the attached map. It was signed with just the letter C. Look at that, exclaimed Don Luis, peeking at the money. My goodness. My brain seized up. I snapped the briefcase shut. Don't touch that, Martin, Luis told me. Stuff it in here so nobody sees it. Who is doing this to me? I asked out loud. Is it Javier? Is this a setup? Is Clara messing with me? You cannot leave this here, Luis warned. If they want to steal it, they will. I went to the hallway bathroom and looked at my reflection. I looked like I had aged 10 years overnight. I couldn't tell if I'd stumbled into something illegal, if they were setting me up as a mule, or if someone was secretly photographing me right now. I thought of my children. I focused on the phrase, this is only money for the trip. A trip to where? I pulled out my phone and entered the coordinates from the note. Someone had marked a spot in an industrial park near Alabendas, an abandoned warehouse behind a paint factory. C. D. What does C stand for? Clara. C for caballero. C for accountant. My black-covered notebook. I pulled it out. The letter C appeared several times next to the orders Javier had given me. Delivered to C in Torrejon. Pick up from C in Caslada. Always C. I never asked. Luis, I have to go. Are you out of your mind? He looked alarmed. Right now? I'm afraid if I wait, I'll talk myself out of it. I shoved the briefcase into a large backpack and covered it with a sweatshirt. I kept my head down in the corridor so no one could see my face. Outside, the late afternoon sun felt hot on my forehead. I walked to the bus stop. I didn't have a car, and I wasn't about to spend a single euro on a taxi. I sat down, clutching the backpack tightly against my body. I considered the possibility of this literally and metaphorically blowing up in my face. I reached the area an hour and 10 minutes later. I walked for 20 minutes past graffiti-covered warehouses and dogs barking behind chain-link fences. The coordinates led me to a rusty side door secured by a padlock. The padlock was unlocked. My heart began to pound. I pushed the door open. Inside, it smelled like old oil and dust. Hello. I called out, just in case. Silence. Only the echo of my sneakers. Light filtered into the warehouse through holes in the ceiling. I walked to the spot indicated on the map, a glass office with broken blinds. On the desk sat an old laptop, a yellow envelope, and a blue post-it note stuck to the screen. It simply read, Welcome, Martin. And then I saw it. On the back wall was a massive corkboard covered in papers, photos, diagrams, arrows, dates, note after note, all written in a firm hand. In the very center was a photo of Javier. To the left, there were printed photos of Clara, wearing large glasses, entering a building with him. To the right, copies of company documents bearing my signature. Beside that, a newspaper clipping with my name, employee fired for fraud. I finally understood. Or at least, I understood that someone else had done all the homework before I did. They had set me up as a puppet, and now, someone wanted me to see the strings. I stood there, my legs weak, for a full minute. I wanted to bolt. I wanted to collapse and cry. Instead, I sat in the chair of that makeshift office and opened the laptop. It asked for a password. I looked at the blue post-it again. Below Welcome, Martin were 4 digits, my date of birth. I tried it, and the screen unlocked. There was only one folder on the desktop, Read First. I struggled to breathe. I opened it. Inside was a PDF file containing a letter. Martin, we don't know each other. You can call me C. I worked for Javier for years. I was his accountant. I know exactly how that monster operates from the inside. They framed you because they needed someone naive, someone with a clean signature and an honest face. Sorry for the word choice, but it's the only one that fits. I save things, copies, photos, messages, recordings, everything you need to file a report and clear your name. Everything the prosecutor's office needs to move forward. I couldn't do it before because I would have been the one going to jail. You can do it now because they already sacrificed you on their altar. I successfully orchestrated my own exit. They destroyed you. The money in the briefcase is not Javier's, it's yours. Yes, it was recovered from a slush fund, and it's untraceable. It's what they owe me, and what they owe many people like us. Do not buy a car. Hire a lawyer. Get a decent place to sleep. Buy yourself legal armor. Then use the rest to follow these instructions. Do 3 things. 1. Copy everything onto 2 flash drives. 1 for a lawyer, 1 for a journalist. I have already connected with someone at a newspaper that can't be bought. 2. Do not tell Clara anything. She is not a victim. She chose her part. I have the proof. I know this hurts, and I know you want to believe otherwise. This is not the time for belief. This is the time for truth. 3. Do not look for me. I've already gotten myself into enough trouble. I'm going to disappear. I'm not a hero. I am terrified of everything, but I am more terrified of letting Javier get away with this. I'm doing this for me, for you, and for every person who signed papers with their eyes closed. Good luck. See. I swallowed hard, my face burning. I looked at the corkboard again. I looked at the photos. There were screenshots of chats, messages from Javier to Clara. Make sure he's out of the house today when you come. Your husband never suspects, and I need you to plant the idea in his head that he has to sign. Tell him the family needs the bonus. And replies from Clara. He always thinks about the children. It's easy. I stood up and leaned my hand against the wall. I wanted to tear the entire room down. I wanted to smash everything I saw. Instead, I took a deep breath and started doing exactly what the letter told me. The yellow envelope contained 2 flash drives. There were clear instructions for creating a backup. There was even a list of labor lawyers who weren't afraid to take on wealthy opponents. I copied everything. Seeing the names, the financial movements, the duplicate invoices, and my own digital signatures left me numb. There were precise dates, huge email dumps, recordings of Javier's meetings with 2 specific businessmen, and a video of him taking an envelope. My stomach turned. Then I saw a whole folder of social photos of Clara and him in a hotel, featuring the same lamp. I recognized that lamp immediately. I wanted to close that tab. I didn't want to see her, but I saw her leaning on his shoulder and him staring at himself in the mirror. Okay, I told myself. That's enough. Stick to the plan. I called Paula. I need your help, I said. And please don't ask too many questions over the phone. Tell me where you are, my sister said instantly. She picked me up in her beat-up Dacia that doesn't ask too many questions. She brought empanadas. I wasn't hungry, but she made me eat. What exactly have you gotten into, Martin? They framed me. I have proof. It's something huge. I have 40,000 euros in my backpack, and I'm genuinely afraid for my safety. Great, she said. The complete package. She wasn't laughing, but she delivered it with that gentle irony that had saved me more than once. We drove to the house of her lawyer friend, Bolin. She welcomed us into her living room, where her dog barely lifted its head to bark. Tell me everything, slowly, Bolin instructed, and write it down. What isn't written doesn't exist. I told her everything. I showed her the drives. She tucked the flash drives into a small cloth bag, handling them as if they were illegal drugs. Don't call anyone else, she said. From now on, I handle all the calls. We are going to the anti-corruption prosecutor's office first thing tomorrow morning. Before that, I want to notarize all this information and send a copy to the journalist. If they hear about this from us, they have to listen. If they hear about it from Javier, they might try to silence us. I slept on Paula's couch. Slept? That's a generous word. I lay there with my eyes wide open, the ceiling spinning around me. I thought of Nico and Sophie. I thought of Clara. I thought of Javier. I imagined terrible, vindictive things. I thought of that awful message. You will die poor and alone. I clung to Paula's dog, who had climbed up to be a nuisance. The next morning, I signed papers at a notary's office. Bolin had me write a brief, firm letter and registered it. Time for the prosecutor's office, she said. A serious man with glasses listened to my story without any expression. He told me, we will study this. Bolin pushed for more. He eventually just said, leave it here. We left with a single, stamped paper. We're missing a key piece, Bolin stated. The journalist has to publish this. If it breaks, they'll have to hurry up. We sent an email to the address C had provided. They replied within half an hour. We met at a cafe in Lavapi. A young woman arrived, with sharp, observant eyes. I explained everything and gave her the flash drive. She asked me many detailed questions. Can you provide your name? She asked. Yes, I replied, hearing a voice I barely recognized as my own. Do you understand they will come after you? They already have, I said. 2 days later, the story exploded. The headline read, the ex-accountant leaks evidence of network of false invoices and money laundering in logistics company. Key testimony. Employee fired for irregularities accuses CEO. My face was pixelated, my name reduced to initials. There was a photo of Javier in a suit. Clara was only mentioned as being close to the CEO. I read the article, holding my breath. Messages started flooding in. Rafa texted me. Bro, you're brave. We all knew something was wrong here, but no one had the guts. My mother called, crying. My father, who rarely gives an opinion, simply said, good. Clara sent me a short, what did you do? With no emojis. I didn't reply. 3 days later, the police raided the company. Television reports showed images of sealed trucks. A photo captured Javier getting into a black car, looking like he hadn't slept for the 1st time in his life. The prosecutor's office called me to provide a more comprehensive testimony. I went, with Bolin by my side. I spent hours answering questions. I left with an aching back and a strange sense of quiet satisfaction. It wasn't victory, but it was the feeling of having finally done something most people are too afraid to do. The lawyer put her hand on my shoulder. Now for the personal battles, she said. Custody, child support, urgent measures. We need to take advantage of this favorable wind. Problems will still come, but you finally have an umbrella. At Paula's house one evening, my phone rang. Clara's number. I let it go to voicemail. Audio. I listened to half of it out of sheer, masochistic curiosity. She was crying. Why would you do that, she was saying. You're going to drag all of us down. Javier says you completely made it up. I found a sliver of courage I didn't know I possessed. From now on, everything goes through lawyers. I typed back. For the children. For me. For everyone. No more audios. She responded with insults. I blocked her. With the 40,000 euros, Bolin helped me create a strict financial plan. No impulsive purchases. 6,000 euros for a deposit and 3 months rent for a small, clean studio. 2,500 euros for food and essentials so I could sleep with a clear conscience. 8,000 euros to pay her and the solicitor. 2,000 euros for a decent laptop, since mine was ancient. The rest went into a cushion fund, stored in separate, labeled envelopes in Paula's safe. I went back to the storage unit to drop off one last box. Don Luis intercepted me with a cheap coffee. How are things, Martin? At least now I'm not afraid to look myself in the mirror, I told him honestly. That's a great answer. And the briefcase. What was inside led me to a place where I finally understood everything. Don't tell me another thing, Luis said. I'll just offer this advice. Don't ever go back into that hole. Shortly afterward, a television journalist called, wanting me to tell my story. I declined. No, I said, I don't want to be famous. I just want my children back. We filed for shared custody. We filed complaints detailing Clara's connection to an investigated person. It wasn't simple at all. Judges don't give things away easily. We had multiple hearings and various reports. My children told me over video calls that they wanted to come to my house. I promised them, soon. One afternoon, Nico asked me, with his painfully earnest 9-year-old voice, Dad, is Javier a bad guy? He's an adult who did bad things. I explained to him. You don't have to hate anyone. Just focus on taking care of your own heart. What about Mom? I didn't know what to say. I managed the only honest response I had. Mom made her choices. I am making mine. A week later, the judge issued provisional measures, alternate weekends, and one afternoon visit during the week. It's not everything I want, but it's real progress. I started a new, temporary job at a different, small courier company. They don't pay me as much as before, but I feel like I can finally breathe. My new boss looks me in the eyes. They ask me for things politely. I can sleep through the night. One evening, while checking my emails, I got a message from an unknown address. The subject was simple. See. The message read, the tax agency will call you. The informant thing isn't a legal movie plot, but you'll get something. The real fortune wasn't money. It was getting to look at yourself in the mirror again without disgust. I don't know if that is useful to you. It is to me. See. I laughed out loud to myself. I realized it had been a very long time since I'd laughed. Yes, the real fortune wasn't actually in the briefcase. The money helped a lot, but the fortune was something else entirely. It was in a paper stamped by a prosecutor, and seeing Javier's face looking like a terrified mortal in a photo. Weeks later, Clara asked to meet me, not at my place, but at a cafe. I didn't go alone. Bolin came with me. Clara arrived wearing dark sunglasses, even though it was a cloudy Tuesday. I need you to reduce the child support, she said. Bolin, I'm spending too much on my lawyer. Talk to Bolin, I told her. Everything has to go through the lawyers. She tried to use the soft, manipulative voice she used to have. Yes, I repeated firmly. It has to be. You're being incredibly cruel to me. I am setting boundaries, I told her. Cruel was that message. Cruel as you telling my children that Javier has a better pool than the park. She stared at me as if she had no idea who I was. I understood then that she didn't know me. Maybe she never had, or maybe she knew me and simply didn't like what she saw. It wasn't my problem anymore. I don't know if I'll ever write an ending where everyone hugs and makes up. This is not that ending. This is the story of how I learned to say no. How I learned not to sign things that smell wrong, even if they offer you a Christmas bonus. How I learned that support is non-negotiable. That love without respect is a dead end. And that you can climb out of that hole with paperwork, with the truth, and with the help of good people. Dad, when do we get to sleep over at your house? Sophie asked me one Saturday, her backpack bigger than she was. Tonight, I replied. We have pizza, blankets, and a terrible movie. The three of us squeezed into the tiny studio, laughing loudly. We laughed at the silly movie. We built a fort out of sheets. Sophie fell asleep with her mouth wide open. Nico rested his head on my shoulder. I stared at the ceiling, and this time, it didn't spin. I thought of C. I thought of Louise from the storage unit. I thought of Bolin, who would be well compensated. I thought of my sister, who fed me when my pride was choking me. I thought of Clara, who was no longer my responsibility. I thought of Javier, who now had to answer to people who cannot be bought with fancy dinners. The moral is crystal clear to me now. Nobody will rescue you if you don't first decide that you deserve to get out. And nobody can make you feel dirty again if you make the choice not to sign and not to be silent. Setting boundaries is never about punishing the other person. It's about fiercely protecting yourself. Today, I still work in courier services, but I no longer take overtime just to impress anyone. I go to the school events. I listen to my children. I pay what I can with what I actually have. There are still bad days. There are lawyer emails. There are letters from the bank. But the shame is gone. I can look myself in the eye again. The briefcase changed me, not because of the cash, which is nearly gone, but because I realized there are people who quietly do the right thing. She gave me the push. I was the one who walked. I don't keep a tally of who hurt me. I keep a strict count of who I will never open the door of my house, or my life, to again. The real fortune was at those coordinates. Yes, it was in opening that rusty door and realizing they had successfully painted me as the villain to cover up everything else. It was in having the evidence, in knowing I wasn't crazy. It was in finding my voice again. If anyone else is going through this, I only say this: save the emails. Talk to a lawyer. Talk to your sister. Never sign anything out of fear. And above all, don't believe the cruel words of anyone who wants to see you fall. Let the only message that truly guides you be the one you whisper to yourself when you close your eyes. I'm not what they did to me.